All right, let's get into the mailbag for the week. The mailbag continues to be increasingly popular, both for people who have something constructive and substantive to share and people who have nothing of value to share other than insults, slurs, and the like. You can email info@davidpakman.com if you have a message for us that maybe would be interesting to discuss during the mailbag. Let's start today with the email, "You're a bully, paid for by George Soros and Alex Soros." Now, I have to admit, I have never heard the name Alex Soros before. Suggesting that shows hosted by Jewish people are paid for by Jewish person George Soros is a very well-established anti-Semitic trope. We have been targeted by it for a very long time. I have never been accused of being paid by Alex Soros, and I don't know who that is. Presumably the son of George Soros. I don't know. Sounds interesting. I wonder what he's up to. And of course, "You're a bully. Who am I bullying?" would be the question I have. That is not also not an allegation I have ever faced. Lance wrote in asking about our Facebook situation, saying, "David, I watched your show about a week ago where you talked about Facebook demonetizing your content for 90 days over essentially reporting the news. This got my ire up, and I contacted a friend that works for Facebook who looked into it further. Here is the official reply. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We've reviewed the content you reported and found it doesn't violate community standards. We apologize for the mistake here and have restored your content and taken steps to ensure it doesn't happen again." And Lance wants to know what happened. Yes, I am now able to announce that thanks to you, about 10 of you, actually, we have a ton of Facebook employees in our audience, it turns out, or friends and family of Facebook employees. Thanks to all of you guys, we have been remonetized on Facebook. A bunch of people wrote in saying this is not anti-vaccine content. The David Pakman Show is not anti-vax. This is some kind of false algorithmic thing. And we learned that indeed no real person flagged our account. Something about our post, could have been the thumbnail, which included Alex Jones, could have been the text, we don't know, got us demonetized, and it was incorrect. And so a whole bunch of you guys who work at Facebook submitted internal appeals. It took about 15 days or so, 16 days, something like that. But we are remonetized on Facebook, and I have only you guys to thank. So I really appreciate that. Let's continue with the mailbag. Mike wrote in and is not pleased with me. Mike says, "David, I noticed that on the January 19th show, you mentioned how to get at-home COVID tests would be in the bonus show. I'm sure you didn't intend this, but putting that content behind a paywall could be viewed as tacky or underhanded way of encouraging subscriptions. The information is not secret. It's widely, it's just covidtests.gov. Every day, this one is frustrating. Every day I just tell people what's on the bonus show. And so that day it was like, we're going to talk about the new program to get free COVID tests. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that. You can just Google free COVID tests. It's the first thing that comes up. The information is not secret in any way. I was not encouraging subscriptions with the idea that I would tell you where to get free COVID tests if you get a membership. A little frustrating because it's a Biden plan. It was all over the news. It's covidtests.gov. But okay, it is what it is. Bill wrote in about the January 6th committee and says, "Hi, David, sir, there is one thing that would greatly impact voters and voting in 2022 or 2024. If the committee shows somehow that Trump had nothing to do with what happened on January 6th. I know it's unlikely, but stranger things have happened. Think 2016. That's a really good point. So what is this about? Last week, I said, I want the January 6th committee to finish its work before the November elections. Why? If Republicans win in November, as soon as they're sworn in January, they're ending the committee. So I would like the committee to actually finish its work without being forcibly shut down, even though I know that no matter what the committee says, the committee could say Trump was the one guy who planned the insurrection or whatever, and it would not change the minds of voters. In other words, I don't think the results of that committee will make a difference. Bill has a good point. which is if the results were Trump is completely innocent and has no blame whatsoever, no one around Trump has any blame for the insurrection, that actually might impact 2024. And it would be similar sort of to that last minute James Comey press conference. Remember, for all the talk of James Comey being so hostile to Trump and friendly to Hillary, James Comey choosing to do that second press conference about the Hillary email investigation so close to the 2016 election absolutely played a role to some degree. We can't say it was a decisive role, but it played a role in the ultimate outcome. So I don't think that's going to happen, Bill. I agree with you. But if it did, if the results were we finished our investigation and Trump did nothing wrong and neither did anybody around him, that actually would be a factor. I don't expect that that's going to happen. Haley wrote in about Carhartt. I like this story. Conservatives on Carhartt's news revealing their vaccine mandate are big mad and making my night. We definitely should be supporting their business. Just the most recent Facebook post on their page has the right acting like snowflakes. I love this story. So a lot of people, I think, don't know about the brand Carhartt. Now, I'm going to try to accurately describe it. Carhartt is a brand that sells a lot of sort of like working gear, particularly for the cold, or at least growing up in Massachusetts. I would always see people on construction site would have Carhartt pants, fleece-lined Carhartt jackets. And there was this association with Carhartt as being a conservative brand, rightly or wrongly. And it may have been because it became popular with sort of folks who see it as emblematic of rugged individualism and being out doing work, chainsaws and whatever. Anyway, you guys get the point. And growing up, there was always like nearby, I went to like the regular high school and there was an alternative vocational high school. And the vocational high school was significantly more conservative in its makeup. And there were a lot of Carhartt stuff around. So I think there's the association of Carhartt as a conservative brand. That may not even be accurate. Turns out Carhartt requires their employees to be vaccinated, and it has gone crazy with conservatives saying we will now boycott Carhartt. I saw videos of people burning Carhartt clothes and all of this different stuff. I absolutely love it. I don't know if there is an alternative to Carhartt. Is LL Bean really an alternative? Doesn't seem like. I don't know. I don't know much about Carhartt as a brand. But I am loving the instant triggering that we are seeing from these people because their beloved Carhartt says, hey, for safety, you got to be vaccinated to work here. Dustin wrote in. Dustin says, could or would Ron DeSantis pardon Donald Trump? If Trump goes to prison and DeSantis becomes president, could DeSantis pardon Trump to earn the political favor of Trump supporters, and would he? So there's two issues here. And one of the issues is timing. And let me explain what I mean by that. DeSantis would want the support of Trumpists to become president if he runs, meaning he needs the support before being president. He could only pardon Trump once he is president. So now, of course, he could announce while running, if you vote for me, I will pardon Trump if Trump were to be convicted of some crimes, which I don't think is going to happen. So it would be a campaign promise DeSantis could make. He couldn't actually do it until he were president. But I actually see that the growing rift between Trump and DeSantis will keep growing. Trump has been attacking DeSantis of late. DeSantis has come back and fired at Trump a little bit and saying, shouldn't have followed him so much early in the pandemic. So I think that the hostilities between Trump and DeSantis are much more likely to continue growing rather than the possibility that DeSantis says, I will save the hero Trump, elect me to keep him safe. I just don't see it. We don't know if Trump's running in 24. We don't know if DeSantis is running in 24, but that's my sense on a DeSantis-Trump pardon. Could he pardon him? Yes. Would he really do it? I don't know that it really helps his strategy. Amanda wrote in, and Amanda said, hey, David, I see in your videos that you've needed to mention when information on a video you're showing your audience are lies and have been debunked. I've noticed you would need to pause the video after each lie to let us in your audience know it isn't true and to remain in compliance with YouTube. Would having a disclaimer on the bottom of the screen be sufficient enough? At the start, mentioning the content we're about to watch is information that has been debunked, and is not true. Play the video, stop for your normal commentary. Message on the bottom says this isn't true or something like that. I don't know. I've noticed times taken away to stay in compliance. Was wondering if there's any way around that. Yeah, I don't think so. My understanding that we've gotten from YouTube is you need to actually, the content needs to be when there is a misstatement, you have to point out that it's a misstatement. And I know it gets a little clunky and we're thinking about ways around it. Remember, we're also on some platforms that are audio only. So having something visually on the bottom of the screen that says these are lies you are listening to wouldn't really help. But I appreciate the sentiment, and we're going to keep working on it, Amanda. Cammie wrote in and says, do Democrats want to lose? David, sir, I've been thinking about this for a while now, but do the Democrats want to lose elections? I know the idea seems crazy, but when I think about the people who were helped by the Republican tax cuts, most of the House and Senate members on both sides of the aisle would be at the income level to profit off of what was done. I do believe that on social issues, Democrats do have strong feelings, but it seems like they are still rich people with a lot to gain from Republican policy. Do they want to profit while also being able to cast no votes they know in the end won't matter because they're in the minority? Crazy thought, but maybe there's some truth in there. So there's two things here. Cammie, you're right that on some issues, Democrats in power seem to have the same interest as Republicans, but they don't hide that. We know that. There's lots of issues where you actually just ask them their opinion. And there's very little difference between Democrats and Republicans. And we've talked about actual interest in enforcing antitrust, right? I mean, there's a bunch of different issues. At the end of the day, Democrats benefit from being in power and the prestige that comes with it more than saving a couple of points off of their taxes if the top tax rate is 37 instead of 39. So while you're mathematically correct that many Democrats in power in the House and Senate pay slightly lower taxes thanks to the Trump tax cuts, I don't think that those 2 points are enough to make them say, we don't even want to be in power to save those 2 percentage points. I think they have much more to gain by being in positions of power. That's my instinct. And of course, you might disagree, but that's all the evidence I've seen points in that direction. All right. If you have something you want to ask me, talk to me about, inquire about, criticize, demand a correction for even, you can email info@davidpakman.com, and maybe your email will be featured on next week's mailbag. Remember that the show doesn't have to end now. We do the bonus show every day for our members, and you can sign up at joinpakman.com.